Mesdames, Messieurs, bonjour, bienvenue, chers actionnaires, chers amis. Je suis très heureux, après 2 éditions à huis clos, de pouvoir enfin vous retrouver aujourd'hui et de vous accueillir pour cette assemblée générale mixte de la société AXA. Je suis entouré de Thomas Buberl, directeur général, Jean-Pierre Clamadieu, administrateur indépendant référent et président du comité de rémunération et de gouvernance, Frédéric de Courtois, directeur général adjoint du groupe en charge de la finance, de la gestion des risques, de la stratégie, de la réassurance cédée et des opérations, de George Stansfield, directeur général adjoint et secrétaire général du groupe.
Secretary of the group and your future chair of the board. I'd like to thank you for your attendance and loyalty. I also welcome in the first rows the board members whom I would like to thank for their commitment and active contribution to the work of the board. As there are people who are not shareholders and who are present in this room, our general meeting accordingly is akin to a public meeting, and the discussions as well as this meeting as a whole will be broadcast on our internet AXA.com website. We shall proceed with the formalities prior to the opening of the session and appoint the registration committee. This general meeting is convened today on first call. It has been convened in accordance with the legal provisions by way of a notice of meeting dated February 25, 2022, in the mandatory legal announcements bulletin, and a call notice published in the same bulletin on March 23, 2022, as well as in the legal announcements journal, quote-unquote, les affiches parisiennes dated 23rd of March. I've just been informed that the meeting may be held regularly, both in its ordinary and extraordinary sessions. We have a total of 70,258 represented shareholders, holding 1,523,000,007 and a few thousands of shares, and holding 1,897,488 shares, representing 66.5% of shares and 68.82% of the voting rights. So I now declare open this combined general meeting. I will proceed to the appointment of the registration committee. I call in their capacity as a scrutineers, if they are willing to accept this role, the 2 shareholders who are attending and holding on their own as proxies the largest number of voters. It is AXA Assurances Mutuelle, represented by Mr. François Martineau, director of that company, and the company AXA Assurance Vie Mutuelle, represented by Mr. Philippe Guérand, director of that company. I thank them for their agreement and propose that be proposed Mr. Frédéric de Courtois as the secretary of the board, who is at the end of this table. The statutory auditors were convened in accordance with the law by registered letter. They are present. It is Mrs. Bénédicte Vignon, who represents the PricewaterhouseCoopers audit, and Mr. Maxime Suin, who represents Mazars. Finally, all legal documents are made available. In addition, those shareholders who have made the request have received the documents and information according to the law and have been able to consult them at the registered head office or on the company's website. We are gathered today here in this combined general meeting so that you can vote on 20 resolutions, of which 20 are ordinary and 8 are extraordinary. I hereby ask the general meeting to authorize me not to read verbatim the agenda of this session and to directly read the simplified agenda up on the screen located behind me. Will you please allow me not to read the board's report, which is included in the AXA 2021 annual report of AXA. This report is available at the registered head office of the company or was sent to you on request and is also available at the entrance of this room. Therefore, we'll have more time for the presentations that will be made to you and, above all, to answer your questions. By the way, as with the previous general meetings, electronic voting will be used, whose modalities will be explained before we vote on resolutions. As you know, following this general meeting, I will step down from the chairmanship of this board, and Antoine Gosset-Grâce will replace me. The board has renewed his trust in Thomas and renewing his mandate. And before Thomas Buberl takes the floor, let's take a look together at a film that traces back the story of AXA. Hello, everyone. Dear shareholders, I am very happy to be with you for your general meeting today, following 2 years in a digital format. For AXA, 2021 has been a decisive year. It was decisive because we came out stronger from the COVID crisis with AXA, and it is a link up because we ended a major phase of our transformation phase, and we are at the very beginning of a new transformation phase. Such transformation had three goals, actually: simplify the group, transform the risk profile of the group, and certainly improve customer experience. Of course, I will come back on all these aspects. 2021 turned out to be a year with excellent performance. AXA was growing everywhere in all of its business lines, and the group is profitable thanks to all its markets, and all of this was based on a balance sheet that turned out to be extremely solid. So given this good performance, the AXA board of directors suggests today a dividend of €1.54 plus 8% compared to last year. We are already in the middle of the next plan, and we can see that certainly regarding our cash flow, earnings. We know that we will be topping our goal, and I'm quite confident that for our strategic plan underway now, Driving Progress 2023, we are quite confident, all of us, to be able to achieve the goals. I will now show you the major engines behind our performance, our business lines, and our markets. Regarding our business lines, you can see everywhere, across every business line, commercial activity, which is very brisk, plus 9% in life savings and pension in an atmosphere that was not very easy, plus 3% in P&C, plus 5% regarding the health business, and certainly driven to a large extent by the COVID experiences, and plus 20% in the asset management. Well, today at AXA, we have a good set of all these business lines, and we are well positioned to prove tomorrow and thereafter a very solid potential. Those business lines are also those that answer best the needs of our clients after these numerous crises that we went through and which we are still in the midst of. AXA is and will remain a source of profitable growth that is strong in the future. Looking now at the markets, you can see that AXA is well balanced overall. France, obviously, confirmed its role as a pillar for the group. But also, we are very strong in Europe. 40% of our earnings stem from Europe. And even in Asia, AXA has a solid position, and we generate 1.2 billion in earnings. But also, we have two major business lines which are cross-business in the major global markets. They are cross-cutting. It is certainly the AXA Investor Management, the asset management, with 25% more growth in terms of its profitability, sharply higher. And AXA XL, the largest corporate insurer in the world, well positioned to have profitable growth. But certainly last year, we saw the risk being again being reinsured, and I'm very happy to see that the major strategic move that you saw in the film is bearing fruits. AXA XL has proven a very beautiful performance progression and hit 1.2 billion in earnings. All of this is very important for us, since we are not only an insurer, but we are also a player in society at large, and those good results allow us to have an economic impact and also a social and societal impact that is strong as well. For us to succeed in all of this, the secret lies behind satisfying and the commitment of our staff members. Today, our scoring is 36%. That's the Net Promoter Score, which is a very good score, and it shows this major commitment, and we are dedicated to doing even more. Each year, we recruit 12,000 people, the best talents in the market. The 150,000 employees are committed, and for a long time, we've had a employee shareholders policy. We've been working for a long time on the diversity and the inclusion of our talents, and certainly in the last 2 years, we were faced with a new world, the world of remote work and the world of protection, health of our people. Our employees were able to manage this properly, and the result that you saw, does show those major efforts, this major engagement, because in the market, we are really in a war of talents, and for us, it is very important to be able to attract the best talents and also retain the best ones. AXA is here also to commit itself socially. One of our major challenges as a committed player is to fight against climate warming. You've seen that in the current plan, it is positioned as one of the 5 major priorities. Since every day we experience as insurers, we are a privileged observer. We look at all the risk of natural catastrophes that occur each day, but also as investors, we are a committed player in order to support economies in this major energy transition. In 2021, we continued in our commitment. You've seen that we were at the heart of the launch of the Net Zero Insurance Alliance, which is an alliance of the major global insurers around the issue of how can we better include the choice in the risk-related choices, the energy transition, in terms of how can we provide support to our customers and move towards a world that is better than what we have today. But at the same time, as you saw, we have strengthened our policy regarding fossil energies, and we have dedicated 1.5 billion to support the sustainable management of forests. AXA is also dedicated to measuring what we promised. And this is why a year ago we launched the AXA for Progress Index. That index contains 7 commitments for the medium and long term, and it is looking at 3 dimensions which are important for us. First of all, as an investor, the other dimension as an insurer, but also the dimension as a company ourselves, leading by example, walking the talk. We've defined for each one of the 7 commitments and criteria concrete steps. For example, we decided that by 2023, we want to be at 26 billion of green investments in our total investments. Last year and this year, we trained every staff member to the dangers of the climate thanks to the AXA Climate Academy. But at the same time, we added 2 new objectives this year. The first objective regards the question, which is how can we increase our green premiums in the green insurance business with 1.3 billion in terms of the goal by 2023. And the second objective, which is focusing on social inclusion, something which increasingly becomes important, and there we want to increase the number of our customers which are covered by so-called inclusive cover to reach 12 million in emerging countries, but also in developed countries. I am aware that such goals are ambitious, but we can't afford to slow down our efforts in this regard. Thanks to our performance, AXA generates value for all its stakeholders. First of all, for our customers, 50 billion euros of claims paid each year. AXA, as well, is an active employer across the world. I already mentioned the 12,000 recruitments that we perform each year, 6 billion euros in wages paid out. Well, obviously, we are always supporting an economic development that is balanced. As investors, we invest each year 40 billion euros in the economy. Well, obviously, we are paying 10 billion euros of taxes, out of which 40% in France. Lastly, we pay those who invest in AXA. We compensate them in dividends, 3.4 billion of dividends paid to nearly 300,000 shareholders. And I'm very proud that among the 300,000 shareholders, well, 6% of the AXA share capital is held by our employees. AXA, as you saw in the film, is a long and great story. We grew with 50 billion in earnings in 1996, up to 100 billion in 2021. And this general meeting today has a special fragrance to it, because for AXA today, this is a key moment. A new phase is starting with a new chair, Antoine Gosset-Grainville, and at the same time, a long phase of the AXA Group history will come to an end. Denis Duverne, who has contributed to all these successes in the group in the past 30 years, will be stepping down as chair of the board of directors. You have seen a few decades ago, AXA was a regional player, and today we are a global player in the insurance business and in asset management. What does it entail for the future? Well, today, the page is turning to the next one, because in the last 6 years, we have undertaken successfully a transition phase, and with a committed transformation insight, it allowed AXA to simplify itself. It enabled AXA as well to refocus on its key businesses and on the strategic markets. Lastly, this phase has allowed us to become desensitized to large extents of financial risks. Such transformation was obviously supported by huge investments that we made into IT, in the digital arena. And today you can see in the loyalty of our customers, but you can see this also in the customer experience, that it has improved dramatically, and it is paying off for our customers. The group's strategy is clear and efficient. In the Driving Progress 2023 plan, we have defined 5 major strategic priorities, which are connected each time to financial indicators which are key. In that plan, our aim is to deliver an average growth of earnings per share in the top range, between 3% and 7% between 2020 and 2023. You've seen that with the very solid results in 2021, we are already going in the right direction, and we are sure of topping our cash flow target between 2021 and 2023. You've also noticed that in spite of the numerous crises that we have experienced and which we are going through now, our balance sheet is steady and our solvency ratio is well beyond the targeted ratio of 190%. As you see, AXA is doing quite well. The group succeeded in its transformation. The earnings are excellent, and our governance is clear and of great quality. Given this context in which we find ourselves, we are well positioned and perfectly adjusted to also succeed in the future. Well, today, as you've seen in the film, AXA is a global insurance leader, the second in Europe, the first insurer of companies, one of the international leaders in health and protection products. All these are needs of our customers, which are fastly growing. In other words, we are perfectly positioned to truly benefit from these major challenges of tomorrow. The life expectancy being extended, the splitting up of our world, in particular the splitting up which is on a geopolitical basis, which we see each day, which raises major issues for certainly our customers in terms of companies, and certainly the climate change and the new risks which require new protection needs. All these commitments, all these successes, we owe them to the loyalty of our customers, to the confidence that our shareholders have for us, and in particular to the commitment of all our people, our agents, and all our partners. I'd like to thank them. Today, we are also going through a key moment in regard to AXA's governance, which has always been one of its major trump cards. And today, we will be having a new chairman. As always at AXA, a transition of such an importance is prepared well in advance, and it was launched a long time ago, and it allows us to have a perfect continuity. I'd like to testify to Denis Duverne my major gratitude for his trust and his advice over these years. The AXA Group will remain marked by everything he has contributed during his exceptional career within AXA. Since 2016, we've had an opportunity of working very well together, and his support has been absolutely decisive to undertake this transformation of the group. On behalf of all the AXA employees, a great many thanks to you, Denis. Thank you, Thomas, for these words that move me, dear. Yes, this is my last general meeting. I will have spent 27 years at AXA, where I joined in September 1995, 1 year before the link-up with the UAP. I'd like to thank Claude Bébert and Henri de Castres, who allowed me to participate in this extraordinary adventure where we develop one of the global leaders in the insurance business based in France. I'd like also to thank all the employees of AXA who participated in this adventure and who make AXA as it is today, a solid company with a very strong ethics that supports its customers throughout their lives, and which, as indicated now by our purpose, acts for human progress by protecting what matters. It's a company that was able to weather the numerous crises that took place in the last 20 years. I will not list them, by the way, and which remunerates in a fair way all its stakeholders, including, of course, its shareholders. I'd like to thank also the board of directors, who has chosen me in 2016 and with which we have accomplished a quality work by supporting Thomas Google in the first 6 years as the chief executive of the group, and by supporting also in the transformation of this group, which he operated quickly. I'd like to thank as well, and above all, Thomas, with whom we've been a duo based on a lot of trust, with a lot of intimacy, and we have been listening to each other very well for the last 6 years. Lastly, I would like to thank you, dear shareholders, for having appointed me as a deputy CEO and having renewed your trust in 2014 and then in 2018. I'm happy to let the group in an excellent situation with a lot of very good, solid financial solidity and a very good strategy with great quality teams, and turn it over to Antoine Grosset-Gainville, which unanimously was chosen by the board to succeed me as chair. I'm very confident about Antoine's ability in taking up this responsibility successfully. We share the same values, and his great experience in the business world in the public and private spheres will be very precious for AXA, for its board of directors, and for Thomas Buberl, our chief executive. Dear Antoine, I now yield to you. Thank you very much, dear Dennis. I'm highly honored of the trust given by the board by appointing me as the chair of the board, and I'd particularly like to thank Dennis Stuverne and Thomas Buberl for their support for the past year to prepare this position of mine now. I would like to say also that in the past 6 years, when Denis chaired the board, AXA has experienced a deep transformation with Thomas and with the steady support of the board, as reminded by Dennis. I will attempt, for my part, to extend the action undertaken by Dennis by making sure mainly, first of all, to make sure your board works in the most collective and constructive way, then and consolidate the trust-based relation established with Thomas and his team while guaranteeing that the board carries out with rigor its mission in terms of strategic direction, management, control, but also watching the risks. And lastly, take into account the new major challenges that AXA will be facing, and we know that they are so numerous. I'd like to extend my thanks to Dennis for everything he has done for AXA and for its board, and the members of the board for their trust to ensure the future chairmanship of our work, and finally to Thomas and his team for the close relationship that we have put together. Thank you, Antoine. I'm very honored that Antoine Grosset-Gainville will soon become the chair of your AXA group. I rejoice getting the support of his lengthy experience and his vision. Next to him, all the AXA teams are driven with me to undertake in the best possible way the Driving Progress 2023 strategic plan. We are all really excited to write together this new chapter of the history and the story of your group, AXA. Thank you. Thank you, Thomas, and thank you, Antoine. I will now ask Frédéric de Courtois to present the performance of the 2021 period with further details. Ladies and gentlemen, dear shareholders, I'm very honored to be to be with you. This is my first AXA general meeting as a deputy CEO. As Thomas mentioned, the earnings in 2021 were excellent. I would like now to present them to you with greater details and take advantage to present some balance sheet-related aspects. Let's take a look at the P&C first, which represents more or less half of the group's business. Earnings last year saw a solid growth of 3%. You can see that it is split into 2/3 of corporate commercial and 1/3 for personal lines with slightly different momentum. So a sharp rise in commercial lines plus 5%. How can you account for this? I'm looking first at two entities which are quite meaningful, AXA XL, that is, and France. AXA XL has seen a good growth last year of 3%, accounted for mainly by price rises, 15% for XL as insurance and 9% for XL Ray, and partially offset by exposure declines in a number of lines of businesses. France has seen a very solid growth last year of 11%, accounted for by portfolio growth and price rises that you can see here that are moderate. In the personal lines, growth was more moderate, around 1%. That's more muted, which can be accounted for both by a portfolio fairly stable and through prices also more or less stable in a context that was quite special, to say the least. Regarding now the results of the P&C, you can see it is sharply higher, of course, related to non-recurrence of the COVID claims in 2020, but even apart from this, the underlying earnings grew by 29%, which can be accounted for chiefly by an excellent performance in the underwriting. It's very good news, and in particular, through an excellent performance in the underwriting of AXA XL, which succeeded its underwriting campaign and hit its goal of 1.2 billion. So an excellent performance in the underwriting, a very good resilience of investment income. So these two elements explain the plus 29% underlying earnings, excluding the COVID. Looking now on the right-hand side, which is the combined ratio, which is the technical result of the group, you can see that the combined ratio, likewise, is sharply higher. Excluding the effects of the COVID, it's improving by about 2 points, bearing in mind that this combined ratio contains many exceptionals. That was the case last year, which I will try to summarize now. The first one, as you can see here, is obviously the significant amount of nat cats last year. It was the fourth year, the most costly we've had since 1970. So a sharp rise in natural catastrophes, and it had a negative impact on our P&L, profit and loss account. The second element is a positive one, and that is the improvement of the frequencies in the motor insurance related to the exceptional circumstances of the lockdown that we saw. Now, the third factor, which is negative, is the compensation of the restaurant owners in France. As you know, we struck out an agreement with most of the restaurant owners in France, and this compensation is a negative exceptional element. The last positive element now is made up of what we call the reserves as they unfolded, which is better than forecast. All in all, these four elements are squaring out, and we can say that 94.6% of combined ratio is a good picture of the technical results of the company, and it's a good starting point for the next 2 years and makes us very confident of achieving our combined ratio target of 93% in 2023. Moving now to the life and savings and pension, which is our second business line, represents about 30% of our business. All in all, revenues were up by 9% last year, so a solid growth, therefore, in particular for unit-linked accounts and protection, which are two segments which for us are significant to improve and to develop. Three main points now on the life insurance side. First of all, the excellent performances of AXA France, a growth at plus 17%, especially in regard to unit-linked accounts, of which pension-related products and the Euro croissance products. Looking now at the ratio today, which is a key element for us. I mean, the ratio unit-linked products and Euro accounts compared to our total account, it represents 56%, which is 15% higher than what you find in the market. How can we explain this excellent performance in France last year? Well, mainly through the excellent performance of our proprietary networks. And by the way, I'd like to thank, if there are any here, our agents and our employee producers, as we call them. The second element now, an excellent growth in Asia, plus 16% last year, mainly driven by Hong Kong and Japan, which are two major business units in Asia. Third and last comment on this page, which is net inflows, net new cash is quite well balanced, especially it translates our priorities, and it is particularly aligned with the mix that we wish to have. In other words, protection, unit-linked accounts, and general account products that do not require a lot of equity. Looking now at the results of the life savings pension, you see the underlying earnings are up by 3% compared to 2020. And now, if we, on a like-for-like basis, if we restate it by excluding the reinsurance business in Hong Kong and by taking out the sale in Greece and in Eastern Europe of our assets, the growth would be then steady at 5%. It can be accounted for by good technical margin, by an investment margin which is extremely resilient in a context of low rates, and through a significant growth in revenues on unit-linked accounts due to rising outstandings or asset under management in our unit-linked products. Now, the health business, which is our third business line, is going well. Its growth has been steady, by the way, 5% last year. Technical profitability slightly down, very slightly down, where there are two factors that do not compensate each other fully here. First of all, the non-recurrence of the claims base in 2020, which was an exceptional one related to the lockdown situation, and then a very sharp rise in the claims and losses in Mexico, related as well to the special context in Mexico regarding the COVID situation. Asset management, which is our fourth line of business, has seen a performance that was excellent last year. You see the assets under management grew by 5%. It's due not only, of course, to the good performance of the financial markets, but also we owe it to the very good net new cash for our asset management business. You see that the net new management is focusing mainly on our so-called alternative business, that is non-listed assets, and also on the net new money with clients who are not AXA. These are two good pieces of news for us, and it explains also this growth of assets under management. Looking now at the results of the asset management, a very sharp rise in revenues by 20%, which can be explained through several elements. On the one hand, as I said, the rise in assets under management, which mechanically lead to an increase in revenues, but also a better mix towards better margin-based products, and also performance fees quite significant due to the excellent performance of our management last year. All of this leads to revenues up by 20%. It's also one of the two reasons behind the significant decline of our cost-income ratio, down by 3.8%, and also the good discipline of our costs. In conclusion, for all of this, and underlying earnings sharply higher by 25%. The results for the group, all in all, are sharply higher. You can see there the underlying earnings is up by 61%. It is up by 9% on a normalized base. What we mean by that is by restating 2020 with two elements. On the one hand, the exceptional impacts of the COVID-related claims for 1.5 billion, and also the Nat Cats, also 500 million compared to the budget. That is normal. So this rise in the underlying earnings can be explained by everything I said before, and it's due also to the good results of our four lines of businesses. Now, the net income up significantly last year by 135% can be accounted for by the sharp rise in the underlying earnings and by a number of gains in our financial assets, taking advantage of good financial results, markets rather. Let me now share with you some factors on our balance sheet. First of all, see that our shareholders' equity are more or less stable, with two key factors to have in mind. One, which is negative, quote unquote, which is related to lower bond capital gains due to higher rates. This is a mechanical effect, and there's a positive effect on the other hand, which is our excellent net income, which is only partially compensated by the dividends. On the right-hand side, you can see that the underlying profitability of equity is at 14.7%, and it is in the top range of our target, which was 13 to 15%. That was the range we gave to our investors. Solvency II ratio, which reflects the solidity of the company, is also excellent and also significantly higher. Last year, it moved from 200 up to 217%. We have a target indicative of 190%, so you can see it's significantly higher. What is key to remember is what you see on the right-hand side. A technical table shows the sensitivity of the solvency rate to interest rate moves, to spreads, to credits, and to share and capital market solvency margin. All in all, is extremely resilient. A few words now about the group's financial debt, which amounts at 18.1 billion euros, out of which 1 billion of green bonds issued in April 2021. The gearing ratio is slightly down at 26.4%. It is slightly down since the increase in our equity related to our very good results is more than compensating the increase in the debt, and the debt itself remains within the range we indicated. We are nearly in the middle of that range of 25 to 28% in our forecasts. A few words now on investments. The capex is something difficult in this rate-related environment. You see the return of reinvestments, that is, in the new investments carried out last year, that return was at 1.4%, and it's a weighted average of 1% in the core assets, to simplify the listed assets, if you want, and it's 2.4% for alternative assets. I mean, those that are unlisted. What is key here to have in mind is that the quality of these assets remains extremely high, with ratings of AA for government states and A for corporate assets and alternative assets. And even in this low rates period, you know, we are steady about the quality of our assets. We are not moving away from that. Looking now on the right-hand side, the return of our investments, of our stocks, not only the new investments, that is, you can see here that the returns or yields have been extremely resilient last year, nearly stable. due to the quality of asset management. You can see here the nearly stable in P&C, slightly changed down in life insurance, but exceeding, though, the range that we had indicated in terms of forecasts. The performance of the AXA share price, which is dear to our heart, so has been excellent since the beginning of last year, plus 45%. With dividend reinvested, this is based on the share prices on Friday at 26.6 euros on Friday. That performance, which is much higher than the insurance index of the CAC 40, rejoices us. We know that it is volatile, it's choppy, especially in this geopolitical and financial context, which is a bit in a turmoil. In conclusion of all of this, as Thomas said, so AXA is going very well. The performance last year turned out to be excellent, with a sharp rise in the businesses in our chosen segments. On the other hand, a success in the AXA XL transformation, which hit all its goals last year. And as Thomas reminded us, and as we said to our investors, we are confident and positioned to deliver earnings per result at the top of our target range, which was 3 to 7% per annum for the share results per share. And we want to top our cash position, the target, by the end of 2023. Last factor now, we are greatly confident with Thomas in hitting the goals of the Driving Progress 2023 plan and of our ambitions beyond. So all of this allows us to propose the payment of a dividend of 1.54 euros per share, up by 8%. It represents a payout ratio of 56% of our results, and there again, quite aligned with our target. I thank you very much.
I would like to thank Frédéric de Courtois, and I now suggest to watch a film presenting the integrated report of AXA before handing over to Gilles Moec, who is the chief economist of our group, and Isabelle Skemama, who is the global manager of AXA IM Alts, in order for them to have a discussion which will be moderated by the journalist Nadia Sharbit. investing for progress. This is the topic of this discussion session. And in order to also echo what Stephen said earlier, the world is indeed facing a multitude of risks in short, mid, or long term, pandemics, cybersecurity, war in Ukraine, global warming. But insurance means anticipating risk and understanding how our societies will evolve, and in order to be able to protect people. So that's the core of their business. So to go to deepen these topics, we are lucky enough today to have with us Gilles Moek, Chief Economist of AXA Group, and Isabelle Skimama, Managing Director of AXA IM Alts, who's the business unit of our asset manager AXA IM, which manages our direct investments in infrastructure and real estate in particular. Good afternoon, both of you. My first question will be for you, Gilles Moek. Can you describe what are the major macroeconomic and societal trends that you see at work? Well, maybe we can first of all look at the history to do so. Historical approach, because if we look at the aftermath of the Second World War, we have a collective call for protection, and the governments were the one meeting this demand for more protection, and this the parents of this welfare state appeared in the 96th, 1970s, and then there was a second stage around the 80s and 90s, which were more individualistic preferences that emerged. Markets were being more liberalized, and the companies, the businesses were back then playing a decisive role, and therefore now we are for the past years in a new phase where new needs of protections have emerged. And it's not only the traditional social and health-related risks that are demands for protection from the public opinion anymore. Then now, for this type of demand, ask for the public services, public authorities are being called upon again. But regarding environmental risk, there is a demand for decisive action in order to fight against global warming on the one side, and also at the same time asking for protection against the impact of the global warming that will have on the households' budget. And this is the demand which is placed on the table of the governments at a moment in time, and this is what is very different from the years 60s and the 70s, that the state cannot meet those to the same extent those demands. So we are in this phase where, of course, we could bet on unlimited pursuing of what we have experienced during the pandemics with the budgetary policies which were really supportive. But we are, I think, reaching the end of this model, the limits of this model, because the governments will not be able to meet this demand, this new and additional demand of protection. There will be the need of a partnership between the private and public sector. And why is this model no longer working, according to you? Well, because what is currently occurring is that we are seeing now the inflation coming back, the rise in inflation that we had forgotten for past decades, and even if it's tougher in the American situation than in European situation. But in terms of macroeconomics, we take on board the shock of the Ukraine war, and we've seen a slowing of the growth and we foresee this for the mid-2022. But this slowing down of the growth is not also. We don't see the monetary stimuli. The central banks cannot provide with answers and solutions as they've done in the past. And the monetary solutions, the monetary policies, and with the picking up of the market rates, then the markets will impose on the financial situation specific discipline at the moment where it's a complicated societal situation. Therefore, the answer cannot only come from the states anymore. Well, now I'm turning to you, Isabelle Skimama. So you're managing AXA IM active assets, alternative assets. So in order to our society to better adapt to the changes and to meet the needs, what are the key role is your company playing? Well, AXA IM, it's the managing of real estate, private assets, private equities, and private debt. So this amounts to 183 billion of under management, and therefore AXA IM Alts is the European leader and is one of the top 10 global player in private assets management. So, and why? By investing directly in assets, and we can act directly and finance the economy directly. How do we do so? Well, we do it because we have to. We are compelled to do so because in terms of private assets, it's a long-term prospect, so sometimes 10 years and above and beyond. And this long-term horizon is leading us to looking at those assets based on what we call essentiality. So essential assets, the ones that will be resilient, go beyond the crisis, and will help us foresee better yields in the long run. So therefore, we talk about essentiality, and this is really the case when we talk about housing, energy, transportation, digital sector as well. But it's also true for other alternative sectors such as housing or real estate when we talk about housing mainly. So, and what about how do you implement this approach? Well, thinking about housing, this is a key asset, but in order for AXA to provide housing, it has to be accessible, affordable, and therefore we always look at housing from the angle of whether it is affordable and accessible. So we manage more than 20 billion euros worth of housing, and this is always from the same angle. Will the household able to finance this level of rent? And this is what is key when we look at our investments. And during the COVID pandemics, we made major investments because we bought over 12,000 flats as part of a partnership with Inly, which is our housing subsidiary, and with more than 4,000 units under construction. So the level of rent is set by the regulation that is 15% lower than the market rents. So this is the type of investment that we like because it's both useful and also it's preserving our future yields as well. Another sector is the one of health, the sector of health. This is a sector we work and we finance in private equities. And we did last year by investing in Cadence. Cadence is a life science platform. So what is this? It's a campus which is usually close to university or close to research entities, and they develop ecosystems where they are a mix. So you find a mix of offices, labs, and also venues where entities and partnerships can be created. And so you see universities, research centers, major pharmaceutical players, small smart startups. And in terms of health sector, this partnership between small incubators and large companies were really successful because it led to these partnerships led to Pfizer with BioNTech, AstraZeneca with Oxford. So we are very pleased to develop Cadence, which originally was a Dutch companies. We supported them in their developments in the Netherlands, in Germany, in London, in Oxford, and we are proud to have secured this first project next to the IGR in France. Thank you very much, Isabelle. I'm coming back to you now, Gilles Moek. You were mentioning a world in perpetual change, which are the subjects that generate the most uncertainties and on which we must act as a priority? Well, as it has been mentioned, this is the climate change. This is really key, and this will have a key impact in the future on the geopolitical conditions and macroeconomic situation in the decades to come. And of course, this will also have a deep impact on our attractiveness in asset management, for example. And this leads me back to my first comments. The states and public services will not be able to meet these challenges. There is the need for partnerships, and of course, the political leaders have to take strong actions in terms of energy mix, for example, but in terms of green financing and sustainable financing. Isabelle mentioned it, and we'll probably mention it again, but the state can create and design the framework, but the allocation of the capital, this is done by the private sector, and we will be doing so in the years to come. Isabelle, what is AXA IM also in terms of this climate challenge? Well, in terms of this, we are having a focus on carbon, on the carbon footprint, because we are convinced that the future yield of our assets is completely correlated to the carbon footprint of its assets, the energy efficiency of its assets. So it's also a financial choice that we make here. But talking about the real estate and housings emit up to 40% of the carbon emissions. So therefore, this sector has a very important role to play. When we talk about real estate, 20% of the carbon comes from the construction and 80% comes from the operation. So construction, we can do a lot of things. We can avoid demolishing and refurbishing existing structures, using low carbon concrete, using wood to build as well. But what is really difficult is the existing assets, because the existing assets will be here in 20 and 30 years from now. So decarbonizing these assets is something which is key for climate change, but also in terms of the performance of our assets. So what can we do? Well, we are working on plans to change those assets, changing the windows and having an impact on the carbon footprint and being in line with the trajectory set by the Paris Agreement. So the objective being to reach these objectives of by 2025 and to be aligned also in the years after that. One example, Dolphin Square amounts for 1,200 flats alongside the Thames. This is where the General de Gaulle was based during the Second World War. So we bought over this a bit more than a year ago, and we are now injecting 200 million pounds worth of work injected to completely insulate the buildings, and therefore by doing so we reduce the carbon footprint and the carbon emissions by 95% and the energy consumption by 80%. So this is a major impact, and this is the way we'll be able to manage and to address this issue in the future. So to decarbonize the real estate, but what about infrastructure? Well, on infrastructure we also invest in renewables. We know that we have to multiply by 3 the increase of electricity production with renewables. So this is something key. We have also financed Hornsea 2, which is the largest offshore wind farm in the world with a capacity of 1.3 gigawatts. And we have a very specific focus on these renewable energy assets. So another aspect, we work on decarbonizing real estate. We work also on avoiding carbon by producing green infrastructure, but also by capturing carbon. And we do invest a lot on the forestry sector because this is providing the wood necessary in order to decarbonize the real estate sector. So in order to close the loop, we also invested in a wooden developer building or real estate manager building with wood only. Well, as a conclusion, I would say we need to anticipate. We were leaders when it came to, and pioneers when it came to sustainable and responsible investors. When at the back then, at the time of coal industry, it was not as essential or perceived as so essential. So we need to remain leaders and to remain pioneers, and we need to demonstrate that we always question our the way we can keep on working on sustainable and responsible management in this matter. Thank you to you both. Thank you, Nadia Charbier and Gilles Mouek, for this discussion, and also Isabelle Skimama. And I'm going to ask Jean-Pierre Clamadieu to introduce to you the governance of our company and also the compensation policy of its leaders. Dear shareholders, I am delighted to be able to share with you a few information having to do with the organization of the governance of the group, and also having to do with the compensation policy on which you will be asked to vote later on. So in front of you, you have the board of directors of AXA as it is composed now, as you say, before this general meeting. As you will see, you have 17 members, 9 women and 8 men, and 8 nationalities are being represented, so which is something very favorable for a group with the ambitions that AXA has. It's a diversity in terms of functions, experience, which ensures a very fruitful debates within the board and debates of high quality. When together with Denis, we looked at the selection of members in order to keep the balance within this board, we of course pay close attention to this diversity and this balance of competence. We also pay close attention to the independence of our members, of directors, and each year we look at this independent situation by applying the recommendations of the AFEP-MEDEF code, and this year the board of directors considered that 12 of its members, over a total of 17, are independents, which represent a rate or a ratio of 71%. On the next slide, thank you. Here you see a presentation of the way the board of directors works. So this is based on 3 committees who are in charge of preparing the decisions of this board. So as lead independent director, I'm in charge of making sure that all the independent directors can indeed play the role that they have to play. And also I am involved in the preparation meetings of the board of directors, and this is done together with the chair and the executive management. So we are in charge of making the most important decisions. We have to discuss and to decide on the separation of the offices of chairman of the board and the chief executive office. And this is the decision we have made in this group. And we have the responsibility of appointing the managing director and also the chairman of the board. So this is the responsibility that we are going to do later on again this year, because as it has been mentioned to you, Denis Duverne, who is the current chair of the board of directors, is going to step down from his position at the after this very meeting. So we have a very deep process of preparation for this succession. This was done over the last 2 years within the Committee of Compensation and Governance, and unanimously the board decided to appoint Antoine Gosset-Crainville, that you met earlier, in order to succeed to Denis. He's got a very robust experience of the business world and also of the public sector, as well as experience at the head of a firm in Paris, are assets in order for AXA to keep on developing itself and ensure a success in the future. So this decision was made about a year ago, so therefore Denis and Antoine could prepare efficiently this succession, this transition. And personally, I'm very pleased to see how we managed over this period of time to manage this development, this change, in order to ensure the best quality of operations of our board. And I would like to mention what has been said earlier, but on the behalf of the board of directors, I would like to express how thankful we are to Denis Duverne for his extremely remarkable contribution. A round of applause. Thank you. Thank you to all of you. So regarding the works of the board, as you can imagine, the year 2021 was a very dense year, but over 10 years of experience I have at this position, we have had always dense activities. We met 11 times with the presence, average presence, attendees, pardon, of the directors of 99%, so meaning that everyone attends the meetings of the boards. 3 board committees were held with an attending rate of 99% for the 16 meetings that were held. As regard the main topics of the group, strategies of the group, disposals and acquisitions, reviewing and closing off annual accounts, also the policy regarding the capital management and dividend distribution, transforming the society into a reinsurance committee, the review of the report on the internal risk assessment, the solvency report, the AXA report as it is called, and also the written policies set out as part of the Solvency II regulation framework, and also the reviewing of the group strategy in terms of CSR, and also the composition of the board and its committees. So in line with the transformation project of the society, this assembly will be asked to set the annual amount of the fees allocated to the members of the board, which is at 2,100,100 euros, which represent an increase of 10.5% compared to the amount set for the General Assemblies in 2018. So this is due to the increased workload of the Board of Administrators, or Board of Directors and its committees, which has to work additionally because of the operational business of the reinsurance company. So this board is also reviewing and assessing the way it operates, and this is also to be on a permanent improvement approach. So the different room for improvement were reviewed by the Compensation and Governance Committee, which then identified recommendations which were then approved, examined and approved by the board in February last year. So we have noted positive feedback from our directors on the way the board operates in terms of its dynamics and the quality of interaction between the board members, and in terms of its performance as well. So, and of course, we have identified areas of improvements, and we are going to make sure that we work on this for the years to come under the responsibility of Antoine. During this General meeting, you will be asked to renew the mandates of 3 members of the Board of Directors, Thomas Bubel. So I don't think it's worth remembering the qualities and the assets and the career path of Thomas. We would, of course, wish to renew Thomas Bubel in its position as CEO. Also, we will suggest Rachel Duhan, who is member of the board of our company since 2018 and is currently member of the Compensation and Governance Committee. She knows very well the Chinese environment and Asian environments more specifically, thanks to her position in different world businesses, world companies. Therefore, she contributes very interestingly to the board. And also, we suggest renewing Mr. André-François Poncet, who's been director since 2016, currently member of the Compensation and Governance Committee, also member of the Finance Committee, and through this position throughout his career, is providing to our board his experience and his sagacity. So we're also going to ask you to vote on the cooptation of Madame Clotilde Delbos as a director. This is a cooptation which was decided by the board on the 10th of May 2021, replacing Irene Horner, who wished to step down of her director's position. So Clotilde, who is currently member of the audit committee of our board, and therefore the 3 curriculums that you've seen very briefly shows how diverse the competence are within our board, within your board, and therefore I would like to stress that it's also something which is desirable, wishable, in order to ensure the responsibility to fulfill the responsibilities of our group and to meet the challenges of AXA. So following these appointments, we're going to suggest to the general meeting to appoint 2 new members, Gérard Arlin and Mrs. Rachel Picard. Gérard Arlin will be replacing Denis Duverne. I think you know him very well. He's been chairing also this meeting for years when he was Deputy Director and Financial Director of AXA. He will be therefore considered as a director, non-independent director, if we apply the code AFEP MEDEF code. And I would suggest now to see a short video to introduce you, Gérald. Good afternoon, Gérald Arlin. I am the board of directors and from life insurance. After 11 years in the Total Group, I joined AXA in 1990 as a treasurer and then central manager of the finance of the group. In 1994, I was appointed at the head of the asset management and also the CEO of AXA Bank. I joined AXA France in 1997 as a manager of investments before being appointed as a financial director in 2001. In 2003, I became the deputy of the executive finance director, and then director myself, and then executive director of AXA Investment Manager until September 2020. From 2018 to 2020, I was also deputy chief manager of AXA, and therefore I was part with Thomas Google to the work on refocusing the work of the group on the P&C and the acquisition of Excel. Throughout my career, I was truly passionate with finance, and my experience in AXA allowed me to acquire a very good experience and knowledge of the world of insurance and its strategic challenges. If you trust me, I will put all my experience at the service of this board of directors as a representative of the AXA insurances. Thank you. Thank you, Gérald, which was very convincing indeed. We also have we ask the appointment of Rachel Picard as a member of the board of directors. Rachel Picard, we stressed how important the digital sector was, and we wanted to have a member of the board who has a very direct experience of successful digital transformations. She's currently the part of Criteo, board of directors of, she's chairing the board of directors of Criteo, and therefore she has this competence as well. So before looking at her short video in which she's going to introduce herself, I would like also to stress that she's going to take over the position of Patricia Barbizet, who didn't wish to renew her mandate as a board member, and I would like to address her our warmest thank you for her contribution for the past 4 years within our board. So now I suggest we look at the video of Rachel. Hello, my name is Rachel Picard. I've been working for over 30 years in service companies with a strong impact. I started in marketing and sales functions, and I had the chance to participate in the creation of major tourism projects, a ski resort in Chile and Disneyland in Paris. I've developed a keen understanding of the client, and I always build my vision starting from the client. In 1998, I've jumped into the digital world for 10 years, first in startups, then at the head of voyagesncf.com, which has become the leading French e-commerce website. I've learned to innovate by integrating digital technology into the strategic vision. Over the past 10 years, I've led several in-depth transformation of various companies. After serving as chairwoman of Thomas Cook France, I returned to the SNCF Group in 2012 as Chief Executive Officer of SNCF, Gare and Connection, which supervises the 3,000 French train stations, then CEO of Voyages SNCF, which includes TGV Nuit, Ouigo, and Eurostar. With SNCF teams, we have been through a wonderful collective adventure leading to the turnaround of the high-speed model in France. I'm currently chairwoman of the board of Criteo, which was been from 2013 the first French unicorn and which is now listed on NASDAQ. I'm also board of directors and advisor of Yves Rocher Group. Customer centricity, digital transformation, team spirit, will to be impactful. This is what I want to bring to this prestigious French company that is AXA, and I hope you will grant me your confidence within the board. Thank you. So I think that those 2 short videos demonstrated to you the will of the board to strengthen its competence in the reinsurance sector. Gérald is providing us with a history and experience, which is probably not comparable as well. And And Rachel also will have a very significant contribution, but beyond the specific competence that they provide, Gérard and Rachel will provide to the board their experience coming from their current management responsibilities within large organizations and companies. So now we're going to talk about compensation policies for our leaders. So as you know, we need to ask to put to the vote the governance of the compensation, of our leaders. So there are 6 resolutions that will be submitted to your votes. I will try to be comprehensive and yet to synthesize the presentation of this resolution, but I would like to remind you that in the reference document provided to you, you have all the necessary details if you wish to look at them. So in terms of the compensation elements, this is quite standard. They are composed of different elements, fixed compensation, annual variable compensation, exceptional compensation, etc., which are the usual cocktail of compensation elements for managers. Now, looking at the next slide, and which has to do with the annual compensation for our CEO for 2021. Our choice was to keep this compensation, this fixed compensation as it was for the past 6 years, and I will come back to this when we talk about the situation for 2022. So this target compensation of 2.9 million euros has a fixed and a variable part. So the variable one is adjusted according to the performance elements decided upon for the year 2021. So this variable compensation relies for 70% of its amount on the group performance and 30% on the individual performance of Thomas, as it has been appraised and assessed by the board and the council, so the committee. So here you have the group performance items with the weighing also, which was precisely defined, and you see what was the level of reaching these objectives, which was at 122% for our group. Individual performance is based on specific objectives, which are defined at the beginning of the year by the board of directors in the letter. And here you have what has been decided by the board, the items decided by the board, and we appraise at the end of the year how well these objectives were reached. And for this individual performance, the board agreed upon or convened on 111.25% level of successful targets. And therefore, this is a variable compensation 1,722,600 euros. That is to say, 118.8% of its target variable compensation. This is what you will have to vote on and approve later on. The deferred payments of the 30% of the variable compensation, that it is mentioned on this slide. So the amount actually paid will depend on the stock exchange value, on the stock value of AXA. Regarding the compensation of the CEO now, and this is from the beginning of its new mandate, that is to say from today onwards. So the board of directors decided to review the compensation policy, and bearing in mind that the principle that we applied so far and that we are going to keep on applying is not to change this compensation policy within one mandate. And as Thomas has done two terms, one of 2 years and one of 4 years, so the compensation of Thomas had not changed over the past 6 years. And therefore, we took on board different parameters. When the committee and the boards examined this compensation, the group performance, the value creation under the lead of Thomas, his profile, his experience, and also the compensation practices of comparable companies. So we looked at, for example, our major competitors, insurance competitors in Europe, which we thought was the right benchmarking process in order to ensure the right level of compensation for Thomas. This led us to suggesting a fixed compensation for this new 4-year term that starts today of 1,650,000 euros and the target variable compensation of 1,750,000 euros. So we wanted to give a significant importance to the compensation in shares, close to 50% of the total compensation in order to strengthen the risk part of this total compensation and to align the compensation of the CEO with the long-term performance of the group and the interests of the shareholders that you represent today. So compensation unchanged throughout the whole term of the director. So starting from April this year, from today to April 2026, we also decided to simplify, to streamline the grid supporting the measuring of the performance of the group in 2022. So I should say 4 criteria instead of 5, and to also increase the weight of the extra financial elements. So now I'm going to address the annual compensation of the chairman of the board of directors. As regards Denis, of course, this is ex post resolution. So this is a compensation which has not changed since the beginning of his term, and this is amounting to 1,200,000 euros. As regards Antoine Gosset-Grainville, we've performed an analysis and a benchmarking of the compensation of chairman having responsibilities which are close to the ones that we want to allocate to our future chairman, and therefore this led us to define a fixed compensation at 925,000 euros. Of course, these compensations will be adjusted pro rata temporis, because Antoine will be appointed chairman at the end of this meeting. So regarding the distribution of performance shares, AXA is giving to his workers performance shares, restricted shares, which are over a period of 3 years, which have to do with the performance of the ownership entities of the recipient for 60%, the performance of the CSR of the companies for 30%, and the relative financial performance of the group for 10%. The performance actions which are given to our CEO depend on an acquisition period of 3 years, but also there is a retention period which is compulsory for 2 years. And these performance are done without dilution for the shareholder, because we decided to issue existing shares. And as you see on the table here on this slide, the number of shares allocated to our CEO when it has to do with the plans for 2021 and 2022.
Last point now. And now, participation of employees to the AXA equity. Each year we propose our employees such AXAs. So it's important for AXA and its board to provide this opportunity to our employees, which is to take a stake that is significant in the group as part of 2021 of that scheme. Over 21,000 employees in 36 countries were involved for a total amount of 293 million euros. At the end of December, we told you early on, employees and agents held 4.1% of equity and 6% of the company's voting rights. So now, this is what I wanted to share with regard to the governance of the company and the compensation of its leaders and managers. Thank you for your attention. Let me thank Jean-Pierre Clamadieu for this presentation. The report on corporate governance set forth in accordance with the provisions of Articles L 225 and thereafter of the Commercial Code are on page 507 of the 2021 annual report. I turn it over now to our statutory auditors, Mrs. Bénédicte Vignon and Mr. Maxime Simouet from PricewaterhouseCoopers and Mazars. Thank you for presenting your report. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, dear shareholders. We are presenting our report to your meeting this year. I will present a summary of the reports on the annual statements and the consolidated statements, as well as the report on third-party accounts, and I will turn it over to my colleague to present the reports related to transactions on capital. With regard on the annual statements and the consolidated accounts, we remind you that the fundamental meaning of our mission is to obtain reasonable assurance about the regularity, the truthfulness of the accounts, about the fact that they don't have any significant misstatements. For this, we rely on the audit work conducted by our two companies in the consolidation scope as well of the AXA Group. First of all, the report on the annual statements of the AXA Inc. or SA. We are issuing an unqualified opinion on the accounts. In terms of the key points of the audit, we made our assessments on the evaluation of the participation securities with regard to the specific verifications by law, especially information given in the management report, no observations to be made. Second report now on the AXA Group consolidated accounts. We also issue an unqualified opinion on the accounts of the group. We have developed three key points of the audit as in previous years. The first point, in terms of the valuation of the life technical reserves, savings and pension, including the postponed carried forward elements, and in terms of reserves for the P&C claims losses, especially for insurance, long insurance as elements, and firstly, and then the recollectible of the for the goodwill, especially for AXA XL. Now, with regard to the report for the group, there's no problem with the fairness and truthfulness in regard to the disclosures in this report. We also point out that the presentation of the consolidated accounts is in line with the European format. Now, the report regarding third-party agreements. Firstly, the aim of our diligence is to bring to your attention these third-party agreements that we have heard of, and our work does not aim at proving or not their usefulness or their merits. We also inform you that there's no opinion about no new authorized or decided regulated agreements. So two agreements were approved in the previous period, and they continued in 2021. The first regulated agreements in regard to Mr. Thomas Bull, CEO, about a social protection and renouncing then his labor contract. The second one is for the chair of the board, Mr. Denis Duverne, bearing upon a social protection regime following his giving up his work contract. I thank you for your attention. I turn it over now to Maxime Sims. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Our general meeting is also gathered in an extraordinary form so that you vote on several transactions on the equity or capital, and we have 5 reports in this regard about the renewal of various delegations granted for the board of directors. Therefore, we issued 2 reports bearing on Resolution 21 and 22, and which are shown on page 45 and 48 of your booklet. It's to delegate to your board for a period of 18 months, and as part of a common ceiling of 135 million for the 2 resolutions, gives the authorization to proceed for Resolution 21 to the issuance of ordinary shares or securities giving access to the capital reserved for those who are part of a corporate savings plan with the cancellation of the preference subscription plan for the 22 issuing securities in favor of a category of specific beneficiaries with cancellation of the subscription preferential rights. No observation to be made on the disclosures that are given in the reports of your board on these transactions to the extent that the final conditions for these transactions have been set yet. We will establish during the use of such delegations additional reports. We also then issued 2 reports bearing on resolutions 23 and 24 on page 49 and 50 in your booklet, which concern the attribution of free shares for the employees of the group with the based on performance conditions in order to finance a pension plan regarding Revolution 24. It's about authorizing your board of directors for a period of 38 months to proceed with the allocation of free shares with a ceiling of 1% of the number of overall shares for Resolution 23 and 0.4% of the number of global shares for Resolution 24, and a common ceiling of 10% of all the shares allocated for the social corporate directors. Nothing to be said about the disclosures given you in the report of your board on such transactions. And our last report, which is shown on page 51 of your booklet, is the 25th resolution. It's about delegating to your board of directors for a period of 18 months the authorization to proceed with a reduction of capital by cancellation of shares within the limit of 10% of its capital and for periods of 24 months. And there's no observation to be made on the causes and conditions which are given about the reduction in the capital that is considered. I thank you very much for your attention. I thank the statutory auditors for the presentation of their report, and particularly the Kabisa Maza, whose term is expiring at the close of our meeting. Let's view now a film that outlines the group's shareholders' relations scheme. So, prior to our meeting, we received 3 mails containing written questions sent by the Forum pour l'Investissement Responsable by Reclaim Finance and by Mr. Hubert Rouault, bearing particularly on the environmental, social, and governance challenges. Those questions, as well as the answers given by the board, are shown on the website of AXA in a category dedicated to written questions. I suggest that we now open the floor. We will be giving you the floor, but potentially also give the floor to the questions or to the shareholders who are online through the platform that was dedicated and open today. I will ask now the shareholders who are present here to signal to the hostesses that they have a question. I now welcome at the end of the table Karim Sylvain, in charge of the group's human resources, and Patrick Cohen, AXA France's CEO, who have joined us for this session. So panel number 10. Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, Mr. CEO. I would like to speak about your transformation that you outlined, and above all, improving customer experience. I'd like to share my customer experience, which is not very good in this regard. I have been for 20 years a client of AXA Bank, and I was not able to have access on the 31st of December. You put in place a new IT system then, so that for 1 month, I really couldn't get any information on my accounts. The contact with your online department, well, we had to wait over than 40 minutes. I wrote to the regulator to explain that the address that I used was not the right one. He gave me another address. I wrote based on that address and never got any answer. Finally, I was able to speak to one of the advisors. I said that I was discontent, so what were the expenses if I close my account? He said, yes, you have to pay 1% compared to the assets you have in the company. So my experience is not very good, for sure. I think there's a lot of work you need to do in this realm, and hopefully you will do that job. Coming back to my question now. Now, in the consolidated accounts, you show that the change in fair value of investments, which was 2.2 billion in 2020, is at 7.9 billion in 2021. Therefore, a change of 5.2 billion. I'm wondering if now I withdraw the 5.2 billion out, the result would have been only 2 billion in 2021 compared to 3.2 billion in 2020. That phenomenon, can we also leverage it in 2022, or can you explain what that change in the fair value has in terms of real impact on the results? Can we hope to have the same thing each year? Thank you. Thank you, sir. First of all, we are sorry if you had a poor experience as a customer. I am sure that the representatives of AXA France will be able to get in touch with you at the end of this meeting to solve this problem. If it still exists, I'll turn it over now for a few minutes to Patrick Cohen, who will say a few more things about this. Then Frédéric Tourcoing will speak about the question related to the balance sheet. Yes, thanks to all of you. This is also my first one. I am delighted to be here with you. Look, I'm eager to tell you that we're very sensitive to your case. As a matter of fact, in January, we migrated our back office platforms onto AXA Bank, and this created a number of unpleasant things for our customers. We are really very sorry for that. We've used means that were huge to make sure that service was back in order. We had some saturation problems on the web of our mobile app, of signing up on the customer website. To a large extent, these issues have been ironed out, and we have now for people who contact us, we have the time it takes to contact us is back to before the migration period, and we also try to cancel the extra expenses. In view of this unpleasantness, I am totally available for you to speak about your case precisely at the close of this meeting. Thank you, Frederick. With regard to the balance sheet, if I understood your question, you talk about the change in the fair value, which is the value of the assets. Bear in mind that in the current book accounting standards, in general, these values are in unrealized capital view and in equity and are not going into earnings generally. So this change in the value of assets, which depends on stock markets and rates, generally impacts very little the earnings. The earnings are impacted when the capital gains are obtained, when they are not unrealized, when they are realized. But the major part of our earnings comes from technical results or earnings. So therefore, there wouldn't be any direct concept or of that fair value. Thank you, number one. Hello, Mr. Chair, Mr. CEO. I'm Elise Cassier, Cash Investigation France 2. I'm stepping in your general meeting. We attempted several times to interview you, unfortunately unsuccessfully. I know that you are very fond of fighting against climate warming with many commitments during this general meeting. I'd like to know why are you investing still today in large oil companies? Thank you for your question. I think we should have a comprehensive view of our investments and the overview of the climate change. So on this basis, we have an investment portfolio of 600 billion euros, and the investments that bear upon fossil energies are a minute amount of our investments. Secondly, when you examine the question of the climate change, the most important issue is to ensure the energy transition. As you know, that energy transition is not possible today. We cannot deprive ourselves of fossil, especially of oil and gas. And this is the reason why, whilst having limited in a very strong way our investments in fossil investments, we continue to invest in the 5% of the oil companies which we consider have a policy of energy transition in line with the Paris agreements, that is, a transition towards a net zero in 2050. I'd like to have an answer. You're saying here that you said that one should lead by example. Now here you have withdrawn from the coal. You did it significantly. Why aren't you like CNP Assurance that has withdrawn from all the fossil energies? It's a real question that is, the GIEC, the French GIEC, has just published a report which gives us about 3 years to act very quickly to attempt to stop the greenhouse effect gases. Why don't you cease any investment in fossil investments? Thomas, will you supplement my answer? Of course, I will also mention a few figures. As Denis Duvin said, something we call a transition. In other words, it has to be put in place in a gradual way, and we are truly speaking here to support companies. I think it's important to see what we have already been doing since 2015. And that year, we were the first insurance company in 2015 that stated, look, we will leave altogether coal. If I look at things today, where we stand, well, we have already reduced dramatically our investments up to 90%, with the remainder, and we're saying until 2030 in OECD countries and 2040 in non-OECD countries, we would have been totally exited. Secondly, we also have talked at length about the oil, and I guess we've dropped it by 70% and to end, because it's not enough to decrease but increase in the part that matters in the future. In renewables, we have multiplied by 10 our commitments. Today we are at nearly 4 billion euros. I just wanted to ask you a question. This is my last question, I promise. You are an insurer, and you know that climate warming generates natural catastrophes, which are increasingly important. You mentioned this here, by the way, by saying that it was a major cost for you, and maybe it would be difficult to insure afterwards. Don't you have the impression, by financing fossil elements, that you are a fireman who is putting some fire because you're encouraging these natural catastrophes? No, look, we consider that we should provide support to this energy transition, and once again, it imposes us to continue to use fossil energies, because if we didn't have any at all, the economy would stop altogether. And we consider that we have a responsible policy about supporting that transition, which leads to maintaining a minimum of investments in fossil energies, because we can't do without them immediately. Once again, we are only investing in companies that have a trajectory that is compatible with the zero carbon in 2050, and we believe that we act quite in the interests of our insured clients and shareholders. I propose that we move to panel number 2. Number 2, please. Yes, hello, Mr. CEO, and good day, Mr. Chair, the board. I have another question in line with the one raised before. As a matter of fact, it's about putting in place a transition, as a matter of fact, and we know your investment and portfolio, your investment portfolio should be aligned with your, it's not easy. And in the merge transition, there's also the notion of gradualness, and no one said that we had to exit overnight from gas and oil. However, science is decisive. We should not develop new projects related to oil or gas. That's the conclusion of the International Energy Agency made public in its report on the carbon neutrality, a report published last year, and a conclusion that was confirmed by the scientists of the GIEC. Even recently, the scientists reminded us of acting quickly, because lack of action, even for you, is costly, even more costly than acting. You are aware, Mr. Bober, the carbon budget logic, which is not to involve new projects, is brutal. And you know more than any other leader of large companies, because you were the first in the world in applying it, as a matter of fact, to the coal in 2017 by committing yourself to no longer insure new projects in the coal sector and cease to invest in companies in that sector due to their expansionary plans. Unfortunately, the consistency is still lacking when it comes to your oil and gas policy. I'm waiting for people to calm down a bit. So there's still this consistency lacking. You can still insure new projects. I'm getting to my project, but you interrupt me every 4 seconds. Can you get to your question directly? My question, look, I expect that today you don't commit yourself, and I regret this as a leader of Net Zero Insurance Alliance. So I regret, therefore, that you don't take the commitment today of no longer insuring new projects in terms of fossil projects, but could you at least admit, and it's that scientific imperative which requires that you move out of oil and gas, and that you commit yourselves to look back at your climate roadmap by the next COP map in order to align your climate policy on this scientific decision.
Merci, Denis.
Thank you, Denis. And as Denis Dever reminded us of, once again, we need to foster, to encourage this transition, but we need to support these companies. As you rightfully said, the first ones to take one position on the gas and oil, we were those ones, and this was unique, but we are still strongly dependent on gas and oil, and therefore we decided on that we need to have a specific action on non-conventional actions and new greenfields. So therefore, we are insuring, but no longer investing, apart from situations where, or cases where the company has a transition plan which is backed by science-based targets for the investment side, and also, secondly, as regards the hedges, insurance hedges, for only businesses, companies who rely on less than 30% of shale gas. And therefore, we can also look at whether our customers had to make do with the fact that gas and oil are still strongly demanded in companies nowadays. This is what we see nowadays. And also we support companies. We help them developing themselves based on the energy transition plans. Thank you, Thomas. Well, question number 9, please. Good afternoon. My name is Arnaud Chedon. During this COVID pandemics, we were faced with numerous problems as caterers in terms of our policies. Our plant was burnt 5 years ago, and the salaries of employees are intimidating our experts when they try to do assessments. So, what about the management methods of AXA in this situation? So why do we have to took you to the court to have the payments down? And what about the ethical drifts that prevent AXA from being exemplary? I understand that you have very regular exchanges between your lawyers and advisors and the advisors of legal advisors of AXA France. I do confirm that AXA did not question the casualties and PNCs themselves, the losses. The first payments were down to you, and more are currently being discussed. The severances are being discussed, and we want to find the solutions in the interest of all parties. And I suggest not to complement this discussion, to continue this discussion outside this meeting. Question number 1. No, sorry, no number 1. Number 8, please. Good afternoon, everyone. As numerous French citizens was called upon by NGOs representatives regarding AXA's involvement in human rights violations and international rights on the Palestine occupied territories. I'm sure that I'm not the only shareholder in this position in this very room. So the information that I could check the truth that prove that the AXA is present in the companies supporting the expansion or the upholding of illegal settlements in occupied territories of Palestine. Some of those companies, such as Lenmi Bank and Gasrail Discount Bank, or even listed on the United Nations data bank of the companies involved in the illegal businesses in illegal occupied territories. So therefore, for this situation, AXA could be sent to court for their participation to violations of human rights in Palestine. So this could be even more the case with the opening up of the investigation of the International Legal Court for the situation in occupied territories in Palestine or for crime against apartheid. So when will the leaders and managers of AXA will understand that this is a risk, an acceptable risk to be part and to be involved in human rights violations? The strong commitments are not taken during this general meeting. I would like to interrupt you, sir. We don't want to be accomplices nor hostages of such directions and decisions, and therefore this will be, I will leave AXA if this is not the case, and I would like also to add to the agenda of this general meeting to give this mandate to the leaders of AXA. Well, your question is really similar to a written question that you raised and to which we answered on our website. So you have a long question, and I will try to be short when replying. So a number of activists for numerous years now, the group, the activist group that you mentioned in your beginning of your question, are calling upon the boycott of the Israeli states and are also disseminated untruthful information about us. They also say that we finance controversial businesses. AXA Group has a responsible policy, which is one of the most comprehensive and responsible of the financial world. This is a policy which is published extensively on our website, and according to this policy, we do not finance activities or businesses which are sanctioned by international authorities. We invest in Israeli banks, and they do not intend to finance further development of occupied territories. So now I will take a question coming from the platform. We do not have the sound. Fighting against COVID, remote working took a large part in our companies. How does it work at AXA? How do you organize the working days of your employees? My name is Michel-Louis Prost, and I'm asking you this question as a very young member of your consultant committee of individual shareholders, and I would like to thank you in advance for your answer. Thank you, sir. I will ask Karima Sylvain to answer this question. Good afternoon, everyone. We can hardly hear you. Can we hand over a microphone to Karima? No, your microphone is now open. So good afternoon, everyone. I'm also delighted to be part of this general meeting this afternoon. And thank you for this question, which is a very important question for us because as other companies, remote working is something that has been introduced not during the pandemics, actually, at AXA, because AXA has already rolled out this type of working approach since 2015. And also a large number of our staff members were working remotely on a regular basis, which helped us actually to prepare what happened later on and the lockdowns and the implementation of comprehensive remote working. However, this is a deep change for a lot of our staff members, and we are truly convinced that the future will rely on a balance between remote working and also presence at work at the office, because the company is made of men and women, and this is the team cohesion, which is extremely important for the AXA DNA. So since 2020, we have remote working global policy with the possibility to work for those who wish to do so at home, and we have a global program that we support with training for all our managers and staff members, and we are extremely cautious when it comes to the risks that it may imply, because we know that remote working can come together with risk, feeling isolated, for example. So what we do is that we put in place like kind of rituals for the teams to come back to sites on a regular basis for team meetings, for specific to ensure this commitment and this cohesion. And I would like to conclude on one aspect which is extremely important, which is about integrating, including new recruits, because as it was said, we recruit 12,000 per year. So we don't want to leave them at home, and during the inception period, we have a very specific focus to make sure that this team cohesion and that the AXA DNA, that the corporate culture of AXA is also taken on board for the new people joining us, and to make sure this is even more important during the very first year working at AXA for our team. That's it for me. Thank you, Karima. Question number 10. Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, Roger Tran. I'm a small shareholder, and I've got 3 questions. I would like to know, for several years, the bonds were close to 0, and the United States, foresee to increase the stocks. So they want to do 12 times during the year, because I'm not exactly sure, but what they plan. The next one was planned for the month of May. So I would like to know whether you're going to take bonds in the US, and also last year, there was an attempt made with Microsoft. I would like to know what it is to do with health, or when it comes to health, what is planned. And also, we need to know that the house is burning down, and we're looking at elsewhere, but in the US, you have a lot of hurricanes, and last year, for example, I can't remember, I think it was the name of this hurricane, Ida. I would like to know whether you reimburse the victims, the casualties of this hurricane, and also for the COVID 2019. What about the inhabitants? There were more fatalities in the US than in France. I wanted to know whether there will be reimbursements made. Thank you, sir. You raised actually four questions. The first question has to do with the impact of the increase of the rates in the US, mainly in the US, and we invest in the US bonds. And I will ask Frédéric Lecourtois to answer this question. Second question had to do with the partnerships with Microsoft when it comes to health platforms. I will ask Thomas Bubel to answer this question. Third question had to do with the impact of US hurricanes in 2020, and Frédéric will answer this question. Finally, and I will answer myself the final question, which was the most important, whether it had an impact on the COVID-19 fatalities in the US. We are not a life insurance player in the US, so therefore it had no impact on AXA in this respect. As we got US bonds. Well, you're right. You are right that we see an increase of the rates in the US, and first of all in the US and then in Europe. For the short-term and long-term rates. For us as insurers, this has a positive impact, generally speaking, because when we reinvest, we invest in bonds which have higher rates. So for an insurance companies, we are not doing what we could call trading businesses. So we have asset liability management. We have a business which is quite stable, and we try to have our liabilities and assets aligned. So we want to invest when you have bonds that reach maturity. When it's the case, we reinvest at AXA XL in US bonds at higher rates. So this will be done progressively in the years to come, mainly at AXA XL, because this is our US company, and this will have a positive impact on our financial statements in the coming years. Thomas, regarding the health question regarding rest. Well, thank you for the question pertaining to health. So as you've seen, health is a very important sector for us, and specifically after the COVID period. And this is a sector which is showing a strong growth at the moment. And currently, our main business has to do with paying the medical invoices of our customers, our clients. But we see that our clients require and ask for more, because when you have losses and invoices, is better than when it's not actually occurring than when you have to pay for it. So we decided, therefore, to not only pay for the invoices, but to also support and help our client in the prevention side. In order to do so, we need to be agile and to have a digital project when it comes to health. The best company that we found and identified to support us in doing so was Microsoft. Therefore, we decided to set up a DHP platform, digital health platform, and this platform is providing services to our clients when it comes to whether I have symptoms, if I have such symptoms, what do you do in terms of remote health consultation, and also when it comes to chronic disease, in order to better support and help our patients. So this platform is already up and running in different countries, in several countries, and we can see that we see a very high satisfaction of our customers, of our client, when it comes to this additional offer in the digital environment. And as regard the impact of US hurricanes and their impacts for last year. Well, first of all, our business is to ensure the risks such as natural catastrophes, such as what we do through AXA XL, not only through AXA XL, but also in Europe. And this year we had also hurricanes and storms in Europe, storms at least in Europe. And this is our core business. So last year we had Ida hurricane in the US, which was a Category 4 hurricane. And generally speaking, we run a risk, but up to a certain level only. And of course, we are reassured, obviously. So therefore, we insure. So we adapt our reinsurance policy from one year to another, but we're exposed for a few hundred millions of only for this type of event. And this is the cost that it implies for us, this type of hurricane, for example. Question number 6, please. Good afternoon. First of all, congratulations, Mr. Chairman, for the few hours to come. And then I wish you a pleasant retirement afterwards. Two simple questions. I have assets and shares in different AXA banks, and the one that is held on the AXA bank cannot be seen today. So I'm quite worried on a trading account. So why are these securities not visible? Because this is what I have in the highest numbers. So the second question is a bit different since I left the group, because I used to work for AXA. I'm setting up currently a second startup because I did one in the past. So I'm trying to find the management of AXA someone who could act as a mentor to be able to improve myself and also to better understand the financial stakes regarding the startup that is going to work both in Europe and in Northern America. And there will be an internet platform that will be opened in a month and a half from now. Thank you. Well, thank you, sir. Regarding your first question, I'm sure that will help you find the answer. So, Patrick, well, I don't want to talk only about the migration of AXA Bank. So we are serving 10 million of clients, and we have a satisfaction rate which is way beyond the average on the market. But however, Mr., we do not have a technical we should not have any technical issues on this platform. So we are going to check after this meeting to see what was the issue on the platform. And of course, we'll be of course we have the competence internally, because you were a member of AXA, you were an employee of AXA. So we will be finding someone who will be willing to help you, and we were going to help you right after this meeting. Question number 1. I'm an individual and a private shareholder, and I've seen that you allocate 1.5 billion on the forest management. This is something which is very difficult. You have fires, drought, you have also insects that are destroying the trees as well. So do you plant, what type of trees do you plant? Do you wait for hundreds of years for oak trees, for example, to be mature, to cut them down and to sell them? So what do you do in terms of forest exactly, forest management? So I think I can answer this question because AXA has a very long experience, especially in France, in forest management. So we have Thomas committed to invest one additional billion, 1.5 billion more in the forest, but we have already a very important and significant management, large territory of our land, wooden lands, and we managed also the parasites issues as well. We're used to do it in AXA France. This is mainly where this expertise is present, and also at AXA Real Estate, which is now AXA IM Alps, where we have a strong expertise present, and we are very satisfied with the performance of our forest management. And as a policy holder, you can sleep without worrying, and that the future member of the board will be as professional as was the case in the past. Any question coming from the platform? No question from the platform? Question number 3 then. Good afternoon, François Valam-Nesson. I used to be an employee of AXA. Can you put your microphone closer to your mouth? Yes. 2 questions regarding the compensation of Mr. Thomas Buberl. First of all, so as a responsible insurer, what would you do if you were paid less? Would you do any less in your work? Because the question was asked that you did the benchmarking, for example, but as a responsible insurer and as a responsible person person, could we not say to ourselves, well, enough is enough? I know that Denis Duverne is really sensitive to this type of thing because he launched an initiative to commit to allocate 10% of its compensation for meaningful NGOs. So I'm wondering, just at what point can a manager say, well, I've had enough. I have enough to run a comfortable life, and so there's no need to have it all for me. So, will it, if you had a lower compensation, would it impact the quality of your work? Really? So does the quality of your work depend on the level of your compensation when it is at that level? So second question, and this is, I've got personal questions, but I will ask them personally later on. But I have one specific question. Several years ago, I suggested, when I used to be part of the AXA group, to transform Aventure as a retailer and to invoice the acquisition expenses to improve the solvency ratio. And I wanted to do this for all the insurance companies of AXA in Europe, bearing in mind that from a regulatory state point of view, we have this freedom. So when it comes to the insurance, I would like to know what has happened from that, because now, per policy, I think that you invoice 50 euros directly to the client for intermediate work. As regard the compensation of the CEO, I think you mixed two things. The way you used your compensation by mentioning the initiative that I personally took, and the way and the level of compensation that we benefit from. So I think that the Jean-Pierre Camadou explained very well the decision made by the board, and the suggestion was made to set or to define the compensation of Mr. Boubel based on his performance, and also based on the level of remuneration of comparable entities in Europe. And I think this is why I think this is a fair compensation which is suggested to you. I will not say more on this topic. As regard direct assurance, I'm not sure I understood exactly and fully your question. But I think that Direct Assurance is a company which has good performances, which is welcoming new customers every year, which has a very good positive image among its clients. It's the second AXA brand in France, because you can be supported by agents under the brand AXA, or insured directly through Direct Assurance via the internet. So I think we are happy with the results and the image of Direct Assurance. I suggest now we stop our discussions, and I would like to thank you strongly for your attention and also for your questions. Before moving on to the votes, I would like to thank you. We had a film on the relationship with the shareholders. Sophie Volange, I would like to thank you for the work when you were in charge of this relationship with the shareholders, and also for the drafting of the integrated report. I spent more than 20 years at AXA, and he's done always her work with a lot of energy and enthusiasm. And among you, a lot of you know her. She was involved in a lot of meetings in the different territories in France, and I would like to thank her for having spent 22 years at AXA with us, and I suggest to give her a round of applause. And now I suggest we move to the votes of the resolution. Frédéric Decroix is going to present you how we're going to proceed for these votes. And the definite quorum has just been settled. 17,393 shareholders are present or represented, representing more than 1 billion bonds, shares, and 66% of the shares of represented, and 63% of the rights of votes being represented. I would like you to remain seated until the end of the votes on the resolutions.
Well, it's time to vote. A few practical information. You have an electronic customized box On the screen, you can check the number of votes you hold or represent for our meeting. To vote on each resolution, you must press firmly on one of the following keys: in favor, green key; abstaining, yellow key; against, red key. Your vote will be displayed for a few seconds on the screen of your box. In order to vote within the allocated time, thank you for waiting. The indication of voting is open, and limit yourself to one single vote per resolution. If you don't press any key, you will be considered as having been in the abstention field. The vote takes place under the control of our judicial officer, Maître Millier. By the way, the electronic voting boxes should be given back to the hostesses at the close of this meeting. Please switch off your mobile phones during the voting. We will now move to the votes of the resolutions which are on the agenda of this meeting. You are being asked to vote on 28 resolutions, of which 20 of the ordinary session and 8 of the extraordinary session. Let's move to the first 20 resolutions which are part of the ordinary session. The first resolution aims at approving the social accounts of 2021. The vote is now open. The vote is now closed. The resolution is approved, as you can see. Moving now to the second resolution, which aims at approving the consolidated accounts of the period 2021. The vote is open. The vote is closed. The resolution is carried. Moving to the third resolution, which aims at approving the allocation of the 2021 earnings and the payout of a dividend of €1.54 per share. The vote is now open. The ballot or the vote is closed. The resolution is carried. The fourth resolution aims at approving the disclosures mentioned at 1 of Article L. 221009 of the Commercial Code related to the compensation of the corporate officers. The vote is open. The vote is closed. The resolution is approved. The fifth resolution aims at approving the individual compensation of Mr. Denis Duverne, Chair of the Board. The vote is open. The vote is closed. The resolution is passed. The seventh resolution aims at approving the individual compensation of Mr. Thomas Buberl, CEO. The vote is open. The vote is closed. The resolution is approved. The seventh resolution aims at approving the remuneration policy of the in line with Article L2210A2 of the Commercial Code. The vote is open. The voting is closed. The resolution is carried. The eighth resolution, its purpose is to approve the compensation policy of the chair of the board pursuant to Article L2210A2 of the Commercial Code. The vote is open. The voting is closed. The resolution is carried. The ninth resolution aims at approving the compensation policy of the directors pursuant to Article L2210A2 of the Commercial Code. The vote is open. The voting is closed. The resolution is adopted. The 10th resolution aims at approving the special report of the statutory auditors on third-party agreements. The vote is open. The voting is closed. The resolution is approved. The 11th resolution aims at the renewal of the term of as director of Mr. Thomas Bubel for a period of 4 years. The vote is open. The voting is closed. The resolution is approved. The 12th resolution aims at renewing the term as a director of Mrs. Rachel Douan for a period of 4 years. The vote is open. The voting is closed. The resolution is approved. The 13th resolution aims at renewing the term as a director of Mr. André François Possé for a period of 2 years, subject to the approval of the 26th resolution. The vote is open. The voting is closed. The resolution is approved. The 14th resolution aims at ratifying Mrs. Clotilde Delbos being co-opted as a director for the period of the term of her predecessor, i.e. until the close of the general meeting in 2024. The vote is open. The voting is closed. The resolution is approved. The 15th resolution aims at appointing Mr. Gérald Arlin as a director for a period of 4 years. The vote is open. The voting is closed. The resolution is approved. The 16th resolution aims at appointing Mrs. Rachel Picard as a director for a period of 4 years. The vote is open. The voting is closed. The resolution is approved. The 17th resolution aims at appointing Ernst Young Audit in their capacity as incumbent auditor for a period of 6 fiscal years. The vote is open. The voting is closed. The resolution is approved. The 18th resolution aims at appointing Picard et Associés as deputy statutory auditor for a period of 6 fiscal years. The vote is open. The voting is closed. The resolution is approved. The 19th resolution aims at setting the annual amount of the directors' fees allocated to the members of the board. The vote is open. The voting is closed. The resolution has been approved. The 20th resolution aims at authorizing the board of directors to buy ordinary shares of the company within the limit of 10% of the share capital for a maximum unit purchasing price of 35 euros per and for a period of 18 months. The vote is open. The voting is closed. The resolution has been approved.
And I'm going to move on to the 8th resolution, which are on the remits of the extraordinary shareholders meeting. 21st resolution, which has to do with the delegation of power granted to the board of directors to increase the share capital of the company by issuing ordinary shares or securities, giving a claim to the company's ordinary shares, reserved for employees enrolled in an employee census company saving plans without preferential subscription rights of the shareholders with a threshold of 135 million euros and for a duration of 18 months. This vote is open. Vote is closed. Resolution is approved. 22nd resolution aims at delegating a power granted to the board of directors to increase the share capitals of the company by issuing ordinary shares without preferential subscription rights of the shareholders in favor of a specific category of beneficiaries in the limit of the same nominal amount of 135 million euros for a duration of 18 months. The vote is open. Vote is closed. Resolution is approved. 23rd resolution aims at authorizing the board of directors to freely grant existing or to be issued shares subject to performance conditions to eligible employees and executive officers of the AXA group, resulting automatically in the event of election in the limit of 1% of the shares regarding the social capital of the corporate capital and for a duration of 38 months. The vote is closed. The resolution is adopted. 24th resolution aims at authorizing the Board of Directors to freely grant existing or to be issued shares dedicated to retirement and subject to performance conditions to eligible employees and executive officers of the AXA Group in the limit of 0.40% of the number of shares containing the corporate capital and at the date of the decision of their allocation by the Board of Directors for a duration of 38 months. The vote is open. Vote is closed. Resolution is approved. 25th resolution aims at authorizing the Board of Directors to reduce the share capital through cancellation of the ordinary shares in the limit of 10% of the corporate capital and for a duration of 18 months. Vote is open. Vote is closed. Resolution is approved. 26th resolution aims at amending Article 10A2 of the company's bylaws in order to implement the staggering of corporate mandates of the members of the Board of Directors. Vote is open. Vote is closed. Resolution is approved. 27th resolution aims at modifying the company's corporate purpose and amendment of Article 3, corporate purpose of the company's bylaws as of and subject to the fulfillment of the condition precedent relating to the company's being authorized as a licensed reinsurer by the Autorité de contrôle prudentiel et de résolution, ACPR. The vote is open. Vote is closed. Resolution is approved. 28th and final resolution has to do with authorizing to comply with all formal requirements in connection with this shareholders meeting. Vote is open. Vote is closed. Resolution is approved. And I thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much, Frédéric. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to inform you that next year the general meeting should take place the 27th of April 2023. We no longer have any item on our agenda. Therefore, I formally declare the general meeting closed. Thank you.
Dès mon plus jeune âge, j'ai vu la confiance qui animait les autres. J'ai vu dans leur persévérance, dans leur courage, dans leur force, que la confiance est en chacun de nous. Si rien ne peut les arrêter, rien ne